I drove 4 hours north without telling anyone I was coming. The highway stretched out ahead of me like a gray ribbon through the November cold, trees bare and skeletal against the pale sky. I'd left the city at dawn, coffee in the cup holder, radio off. I wanted silence. I needed to think. My daughter Amanda hadn't called in 3 weeks. Not unusual, really. She was busy with her new life, her new husband, her real estate empire that was supposedly taking off. But 3 weeks without even a text? That felt deliberate. That felt like avoidance. My wife Linda had been crying on the phone 2 nights ago. She tried to hide it, that little hitch in her voice, but I knew. 26 years of marriage teaches you the sound of someone breaking quietly on the other end of the line. "It's nothing," she'd said. "Just tired. Thanksgiving planning, you know." I didn't know. That was the problem. So I got in the truck and started driving. The lake house had been in my family for 30 years. My father bought it when I was 20, a fixer-upper on 3 acres with a view of Mirror Lake that could stop your heart on a clear morning. I'd spent every summer there as a young man, learning how to frame walls and fix plumbing and make a house into something worth keeping. When Dad died, it became mine. When Amanda was born, it became hers too, in a way. Birthday parties on the dock. 4th of July fireworks reflected in the water. Her first boyfriend sitting nervous on the porch while I pretended to clean my tools nearby. The house meant something. I pulled off the highway at exit 47, winding through the small town of Clearwater Springs. Population 3,200. 1 stoplight, a diner, a hardware store, a post office that doubled as the town clerk's office. The kind of place where everyone knew your name and your business before you did. The lake house sat at the end of a gravel road, hidden by pine trees. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a moment, looking at the place. Blue paint peeling on the shutters. The porch swing I'd installed 5 years ago, swaying slightly in the wind. Linda's car was there, which meant she'd driven up alone. That wasn't right either. I got out and walked up the steps. The door was unlocked. Inside, the house smelled like pine and dust and something else. Something I couldn't quite place. Sadness, maybe. Or fear. Linda? No answer. I walked through the living room, past the stone fireplace I'd rebuilt with my own hands, past the family photos on the mantel. Amanda at 6, gap-toothed and grinning. Amanda at 16, rolling her eyes at the camera. Amanda at her wedding last year, beautiful in white, holding hands with Derek Mitchell, realtor extraordinaire, the man who'd swept her off her feet with promises of success and security. I found Linda in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. She looked up when I walked in. Her eyes were red. "You came," she said softly. Of course I came. I sat down beside her, taking her hand. It felt small and cold. "What's going on?" She shook her head, trying to smile. "Nothing. I'm just being silly." "Linda, it's nothing really. Tell me." The smile cracked. Her face crumpled, and suddenly she was crying, really crying, the kind of tears that come from somewhere deep and broken. I pulled her close, holding her while she shook against my chest. "She's selling the house," Linda whispered finally. "Amanda, she and Derek are planning to sell it." I went very still. "What?" "I saw the paperwork. She left it out on the kitchen counter when she was here last week. Listing agreements, market analysis, photos of every room." Linda pulled back, wiping her eyes. "They're calling it a luxury flip opportunity. They want to put it on the market after Christmas." My hands were shaking. I realized I'd clenched them into fists. "She can't do that. The house is in my name." "Not entirely." Linda's voice was barely audible. "Do you remember when we refinanced 10 years ago? When we had that cash flow problem and needed to consolidate the loans?" I remembered. Vaguely. I'd been working 70-hour weeks on a commercial project downtown, barely sleeping, letting Linda handle the paperwork. "They had me add Amanda's name to the deed," Linda continued. "Secondary owner. The bank said it would help with the approval, something about showing family stability. I didn't think it mattered. She was our daughter. We trusted her. Jesus Christ. She's been planning this for months, I think. Derek's been coaching her. They came up here 3 times in September, measuring rooms, taking professional photos. She didn't even tell me. I only found out because Mrs. Henderson from across the lake mentioned seeing them here. I stood up, pacing to the window. The lake beyond was gray and choppy, wind cutting across the surface. Why would she do this? Because Derek convinced her it's smart business. Linda's voice turned bitter. Because they need capital for his new development project. Because she thinks we're too old to appreciate the place anymore. Too old. Those were her exact words. When I confronted her on the phone, she said the house was wasted on old people who barely use it. Linda laughed, a harsh sound. We're 51 and 53. Apparently that makes us ancient. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not quite anger yet. Something worse. Something calculating. Where is she now? Linda hesitated. They're hosting a pre-Thanksgiving party, Derek's investor group, at that mansion development he's been working on, the one he calls the Estates. He rented the clubhouse for the evening. The Palace, I said quietly. What? That's what Amanda calls it. The Palace. I saw it on her Instagram last week. Gold fixtures and marble floors and champagne towers. I pulled out my phone, opening the app. Amanda's account was public because of course it was. She loved showing off her new life. There it was. Posted 3 hours ago. A photo of Amanda and Derek standing in front of a massive stone fireplace, both of them dressed like they were attending a gala. The caption read, "Pre-Turkey Day celebration with our amazing investors. Big announcements coming soon. Real estate life. Luxury, living, building empires." In the background, barely visible on a projection screen, I could see an image. My lake house. With text overlay, "Available soon. Luxury lakefront opportunity." My hands stopped shaking. I felt very calm suddenly, very clear. "What are you going to do?" Linda asked quietly. I looked at her. At this woman I'd loved for more than half my life. At the pain in her eyes, the betrayal, the humiliation of being cast aside by her own daughter like a piece of furniture that no longer matched the decor. "I'm going to the palace," I said. "Tom, don't. Please. I'm going to walk in there, in front of all her fancy investors and her smug husband, and I'm going to make sure she understands exactly what she's done. She won't listen. She never listens." I kissed Linda's forehead. "Then, I'll make sure everyone else listens." I drove to the estates with my phone navigation reading off directions in a calm female voice that seemed absurdly serene, given the rage building in my chest. The development was 20 minutes from the lake house, a sprawling complex of McMansions and manicured lawns that probably cost more per month in HOA fees than most people made in salary. The clubhouse sat at the center like a temple to excess. 3 stories of glass and stone, fountain in front, valet parking. I pulled my 15-year-old pickup truck right up to the entrance, ignoring the valet's horrified expression. "Sir, you can't. I'm here for the Mitchell party." "Sir, this is a private event." I walked past him. The lobby was exactly what I'd expected. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, modern art on the walls that looked like someone had thrown paint at a canvas and called it genius. Through the open doors to the main hall, I could see the party in full swing. At least 50 people, all dressed in cocktail attire, champagne glasses in hand, ambient jazz playing softly in the background. And there, at the center of it all, standing beside a large projection screen, were Amanda and Derek. My daughter looked beautiful. She always did. Dark hair like her mother's, styled in some complicated updo. A dress that probably cost more than my truck. Diamond earrings catching the light. She was laughing at something someone said, that bright, performative laugh she'd developed since marrying Derek. Derek stood beside her with his hand on her waist, possessive and proud. Tall, square-jawed, hair styled with so much product it looked lacquered. navy suit, no tie, that carefully cultivated, successful young entrepreneur look. He was talking to a group of older men, gesturing with his free hand, selling them something. On the screen behind them, my lake house rotated slowly in a 3D rendering. Professional photography, drone shots, the works. Text appeared. Mitchell Properties presents Mirror Lake Estate Development Opportunity. I walked into the hall. A few people near the door noticed me first. A woman in a red dress glanced over, frowned at my jeans and flannel shirt, then quickly looked away. A man in a tuxedo actually stepped back, as if poverty might be contagious. I kept walking, straight toward Amanda and Derek. Amanda saw me when I was about 20 feet away. Her smile froze. Her champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. "Dad?" The hall didn't exactly go quiet, but enough people nearby stopped talking that her voice carried. Derek turned, his salesman's smile still in place, and then he saw me. "Tom." His voice was carefully neutral. "This is unexpected." "Is it?" I stopped in front of them, looking up at the screen. "Because I'd say it's perfectly expected. You're selling my house. Seems like I should be here." "Dad, this isn't the time," Amanda started. "When would be the time, Amanda? When the sale goes through? When the new owners are moving in? Or were you planning to tell me at all?" People were definitely watching now. Derek's smile had gone brittle. "Tom, why don't we step outside and discuss this privately?" "No, I think we should discuss it right here, in front of all your investors." I gestured to the screen. "That's a beautiful rendering. Must have cost a lot to produce. When did you commission it? Before or after you told your mother the house was wasted on old people?" Amanda's face flushed. "I didn't say it like that." "How did you say it?" "I said—" She caught herself, glancing at the watching crowd. "This isn't appropriate." "You know what isn't appropriate? Stealing your parents' house?" "I'm not stealing anything." Her voice rose, that defensive edge I remembered from her teenage years. "My name is on the deed. I have every legal right." "Legal right." I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. "Is that what Derek taught you? That having your name on a piece of paper means you can betray your own family?" Derek stepped forward, his hand coming up in what was probably meant to be a calming gesture. "Tom, I understand you're emotional right now, but this is a business decision. Amanda and I have been very clear about our development strategy. This property represents significant value that's currently being underutilized." Underutilized. I looked at him, really looked at him, at his expensive suit and his perfect hair and his empty, calculating eyes. "That's what you call the house where my daughter learned to swim, where we spent every summer for 20 years, where her mother cried herself to sleep last night wondering where she went wrong as a parent." Amanda flinched. "Dad, please." "You want to do business?" I turned back to her. "Fine. Let's do business. Let's talk about how you forged your mother's signature on the listing agreement. Let's discuss how you've been coming up to the house without permission, staging photos, planning renovations. Let's tell all these nice investors about how you cut your own mother out of the planning because she might have objected to you selling her home." "I didn't forge anything." Amanda's voice was shrill now. "Mom knew about this. She just, what? She just didn't want to believe her own daughter would do something this cruel? She just hoped you'd change your mind? She just cried for 3 weeks while you ignored her calls?" Derek put his hand on Amanda's shoulder, protective. "I think you need to leave." "Oh, I'll leave." I looked up at the screen one more time, at my house rendered in pristine digital perfection. "But first, I want you to understand something, both of you." I waited until I had their full attention, until I had everyone's attention. "You think I'm just an old man, some relic from Amanda's past who doesn't understand modern business, some sentimental fool who gets emotional about property." I smiled, and I felt it come out cold and sharp. But I built that house with my own hands. I know every beam, every pipe, every wire. I know things about that property that aren't in any public record. And I know people in this town, people who've been there since before Derek Mitchell decided to become a real estate mogul. Derek's face had gone pale. Are you threatening us? I'm explaining reality. I looked at Amanda. You declared war, sweetheart. You just didn't realize who you were fighting. I turned and walked out. Behind me, I heard Amanda say something, her voice breaking, but I didn't stop. I walked past the stunned crowd, past the valet who scrambled out of my way, back to my truck. My hands were steady on the wheel as I drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see the clubhouse receding, all its glass and glitter and false promises. Harmless, I said quietly to my reflection. She thinks I'm harmless. I pulled out my phone at the first red light and called Jack Patterson. He answered on the second ring. Tom? That you? Jack, I need a favor. Name it. Jack Patterson had worked with me for 20 years before retiring 5 years ago to run his own contracting business. We'd built half of Clearwater Springs together. He knew every building inspector, every code enforcement officer, every county clerk from here to the Canadian border. Remember that kid who married Amanda? Derek Mitchell? The real estate punk? Yeah, I remember him. Why? I need to know everything about his business. Every property, every deal, every shortcut he's ever taken, every code violation, every angry client, every lie he's ever told. There was a pause. Then Jack said quietly, He screw you over? He's trying to. Then he's about to learn why that's a bad idea. I could hear the grin in Jack's voice. Give me 48 hours. I'll have everything. I need it by tomorrow morning. Even better. I'll pull an all-nighter. Thanksgiving's overrated anyway. I hung up and kept driving, but I didn't go back to the lake house. Not yet. I had one more stop to make. While you're here, hit the hype button. Don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? The Clearwater Springs town clerk's office closed at 5 on weekdays, but Emily Warren had always been willing to bend the rules for people she liked. I'd helped her renovate her kitchen 8 years ago, wouldn't take payment, told her to pass it forward. She'd remembered. I parked outside the small brick building just as she was locking up. She looked up, recognized me, and smiled. Tom Harper, haven't seen you in months. Been busy in the city. Got a minute? She glanced at her watch, then at my face. Whatever she saw there made her unlock the door again. Come on in. The office smelled like old paper and coffee. Emily led me past the counter to her desk in the back, gesturing for me to sit. She was in her 60s, gray hair in a practical bun, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. What do you need? Property records for the lake house on Mirror Lake Road, and anything you have on Derek Mitchell's business filings. Emily's eyebrows rose. That's your son-in-law, isn't it? For now. She studied me for a long moment, then turned to her computer. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with surprising speed. What am I looking for specifically? The deed to my lake house. I need to know exactly what it says about ownership transfer and decision-making rights. All right. She pulled up the file, squinting at the screen. Okay, here we go. Property at 847 Mirror Lake Road. Primary owner Thomas James Harper. Secondary owner Amanda Harper Mitchell. Added October 2015 during refinancing with Mountain State Bank. What are the terms? Emily scrolled down. Secondary owner has no decision-making authority regarding sale or transfer of property without primary owner consent. Cannot encumber property with additional liens or mortgages. Cannot alter or demolish structures without primary owner written approval. She looked up. Basically, her name's on the deed, but you still own it. She can't do anything without you saying yes. Something loosened in my chest. She told my wife she could sell it. She lied. Emily's voice was flat. Or her husband lied to her. Either way, any sale agreement she signs is null and void without your signature. Can I get a copy of that? Already printing. She gestured to the printer humming in the corner. What else? Derek Mitchell. Business licenses, permits, complaints filed. Emily's fingers flew across the keyboard again. This time her expression darkened as she read. Oh boy. What? Your son-in-law has been busy. Mitchell Properties LLC registered 3 years ago. 13 active listings, 6 completed sales in the last year. But Tom, there are also 4 formal complaints filed with the County Consumer Protection Office. 2 from buyers claiming he misrepresented property conditions, 1 from a seller claiming he breached fiduciary duty, and 1 from a contractor claiming he didn't pay for work performed. What happened with those complaints? 3 are still pending, 1 was settled out of court. She clicked deeper into the records. There's also a notice here from the building inspector's office. 3 of his properties failed inspection for undisclosed structural issues. He had to pay for remediation. What kind of structural issues? Mold, water damage, foundation cracks that weren't disclosed to buyers. Emily looked at me over her reading glasses. Tom, this guy's not just cutting corners. He's running a scam. I thought about Amanda standing in that hall defending him, believing him, building her entire future on his promises. Can I get copies of all of that too? Give me 10 minutes. While Emily printed, I sat in the hard plastic chair and thought about the last real conversation I'd had with my daughter. It had been at her wedding almost exactly a year ago. We'd been standing outside the reception venue, watching guests arrive. She'd been nervous, fidgeting with her bouquet. You like him, right? She'd asked. Derek? I'd hesitated too long before answering. If you love him, then I'm happy for you. But you don't like him. I don't know him well enough to have an opinion. She'd looked at me then, really looked at me. He's different from what you're used to. More ambitious, more focused on success. But Dad, he's going to take care of me. He has plans, real plans, not just working with his hands until he's too old to stand up straight. The comment had stung, still stung, thinking about it now. I've done all right, I'd said quietly. I know, I'm not saying... She'd stopped, frustrated. I just want more than all right. Is that wrong? No, sweetheart. It's not wrong. But I'd known then, known that Derek had poisoned something in her, made her look at her own father and see failure instead of love, made her measure worth in dollar signs instead of what you built with your own hands. Tom? Emily's voice pulled me back to the present. Everything okay? Fine. Just thinking. She handed me a folder thick with papers. Everything you asked for. And Tom, be careful. Men like Derek Mitchell don't take kindly to being exposed. I'm counting on it. I drove back to the lake house as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Linda was in the kitchen when I arrived, trying to cook something. The house smelled like burning pasta. Tom? She turned off the stove quickly, abandoning whatever dinner she'd been attempting. What happened? I set the folder on the kitchen table. I went to their party. Oh, God. It was educational. I pulled out the property deed. Did you know Amanda can't actually sell this house without my permission? Linda stared at the paper. What? The deed. She's listed as secondary owner, but she has no decision-making authority. Any sale agreement she signs is meaningless without my signature. But she said Derek lied to her, or she lied to you. Either way, the house isn't going anywhere. Linda sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs. Then why would they? Because Derek's business is failing. I spread out the complaint documents. He's got lawsuits pending, angry clients, buildings that failed inspection. He needs capital desperately, and he convinced Amanda that selling our house was the solution. She believed him. She loves him. Love makes people stupid. I said it without bitterness, just fact. But Emily, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the house anymore. Linda looked up at me, and I saw fear in her eyes. What do you mean? I mean, they humiliated you. They humiliated both of us. They planned to steal our home and sell it out from under us without a second thought. And when I confronted them tonight, Amanda looked at me like I was nothing, like I was just some obstacle to overcome. Tom, she's our daughter. I know who she is. I sat down across from her, taking her hands. And because she's our daughter, because I love her despite what she's done, I'm going to do this the right way. I'm not going to break any laws. I'm not going to hurt anyone. But I am going to make absolutely certain that Derek Mitchell understands what happens when you threaten my family. Linda's hands tightened on mine. What are you going to do? I'm going to take their ammunition away, one piece at a time, until there's nothing left but the truth, and they have to face what they've become. I spent that night at the kitchen table going through every document Emily had given me, building a timeline, connecting the dots. By 3 a.m, I had a clear picture of Derek Mitchell's operation. He was a con artist. Not a criminal exactly. He stayed just barely on the legal side of things. But he misrepresented properties. He hid defects. He pressured elderly clients to sell their homes below market value, then flipped them for massive profits. He promised contractors payment and then found excuses to withhold it. He lied to buyers about neighborhoods, about property values, about future developments that would never materialize. And Amanda was his accomplice. Maybe not knowingly at first, but I'd seen the photos on her Instagram. Her at property showings, standing beside Derek, smiling that bright fake smile. Her holding sold signs in front of houses that had code violations buried in the foundation. Her hosting open houses for properties that Derek had systematically stripped of value before selling. She knew. Maybe she didn't want to know, but she knew. My phone buzzed at 6 a.m. Jack Patterson. Got your information. You're not going to like it. Tell me. Derek Mitchell is leveraged to hell. He's got loans on top of loans. All his properties are mortgaged twice over, and he's 3 months behind on payments to at least 6 contractors. The bank's threatening foreclosure on his office building. He's drowning Tom, and worse, he's been using your daughter's name on some of these loans. Nothing illegal. She signed as a co-signer. But if his business goes under, her credit goes with it. She'll be liable for hundreds of thousands in debt. Jesus Christ. There's more. He's got a deal pending with an investment group out of Boston. Big money, looking to develop property on Mirror Lake. They want to buy 3 adjacent lots, tear down the existing structures, build luxury condos. And guess what property sits right in the middle of their development zone? My house. Bingo. He promised them he'd have it by January. Told them it was a done deal, family property, easy acquisition. He's already taken a deposit from them. $50,000. Non-refundable. I closed my eyes. So if he can't deliver, he's bankrupt, and Amanda goes down with him. After Jack hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen, listening to Linda sleep in the bedroom above. The house creaked around me, old wood settling, familiar sounds. I thought about my father buying this place 30 years ago, about teaching Amanda to fish off the dock, about her laughing as she fell off the paddle boat, age 7, completely unafraid because she knew I'd pull her out. When had she stopped seeing me as someone who'd protect her? When had she started seeing me as someone to overcome? My phone buzzed again. A text from Amanda. Dad, we need to talk. Can you come by the house this morning, please? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I got dressed and got in my truck. Amanda and Derek lived in a new development on the south side of town, one of those communities where every house looked the same. Beige siding, black shutters, landscaping by committee. Their house was a 4-bedroom colonial with a 2-car garage and a front yard that looked like it had been installed yesterday, which it probably had. Derek's Audi was in the driveway. Amanda's BMW beside it. Both leased, I'd bet. Everything about their life was leased, borrowed, mortgaged, against a future that existed only in Derek's imagination. Amanda answered the door before I could knock. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, eyes red from crying. She wore yoga pants and an old college sweatshirt, the kind of casual that meant she'd given up on pretending. "Dad, you wanted to talk?" She nodded, stepping back to let me in. The house smelled like new carpet and fresh paint. The living room was decorated with that generic, modern farmhouse style that was everywhere now. Gray walls, white trim, decorative sign that said, "Gather" over the mantel. Nothing personal. Nothing real. Derek sat on the couch, looking less polished than last night, but still trying to maintain that alpha male posture. He stood when I entered, offering his hand. I didn't take it. "Tom, thanks for coming." "Amanda asked me to come. That's the only reason I'm here." Amanda gestured to the chairs. "Please, sit. I'll make coffee." "I don't want coffee. I want to know what's going on." She sat down on the edge of the armchair, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Derek sat beside her on the couch, close enough to touch, but not touching. That told me everything about the state of their marriage right now. "I owe you an apology," Amanda started. "For which part? Trying to sell my house? Lying to your mother? Humiliating me in front of 50 people? She flinched. "All of it. Dad, I'm sorry. I should have talked to you first. Should have been honest, but Derek said—" She stopped, glancing at her husband. "I said it was a business opportunity," Derek cut in smoothly. "And it is. Tom, you have to understand, real estate is about timing. That property is sitting on prime lakefront, and the market is—" "Derek, stop talking." He blinked. Amanda looked between us, tense. "I know about the Boston investors," I said. "I know about the $50,000 deposit. I know about the loans, the missed payments, the code violations, the complaints. I know everything." Derek's face went pale. "How did you—" "It's a small town. People talk, especially when you've screwed them over." I looked at Amanda. "Did you know your husband has 4 lawsuits pending against him? Did you know he's 3 months behind on contractor payments? Did you know he's about to lose his business?" "That's not—" Derek started. "Did you know," I continued, my voice getting harder, "that he's put your name on loans that you'll be liable for when his company collapses? That he's using you as a human shield against his own debt?" Amanda was staring at Derek now, her face white. "Derek? It's not like that," he said quickly. "Tom's exaggerating. Yes, we have some cash flow issues, but that's normal in real estate. The market's tight right now, but once we close on the lake house—" "You're not closing on the lake house." I pulled out the deed and tossed it on the coffee table. "Read it. Secondary owner has no sale authority. Amanda can't sell that property without my written permission, and I'm never giving it." Derek picked up the paper, read it, and his face went from pale to gray. "That's not possible. The bank said—" "The bank lied. Or you lied. Or you just didn't read the fine print. Either way, the house isn't yours to sell." Amanda was crying now, silent tears running down her face. "Derek, you said this was legal. You said everything was handled." "It is legal. The paperwork just needs—" "No." I stood up. "This conversation is over. Amanda, you have a choice to make. You can stay with this man and go down with his sinking ship, or you can walk away before it destroys you." "Dad, please, I'm not finished." I looked at Derek. "You have 48 hours to return that deposit to your Boston investors. You're going to tell them the deal fell through. You're going to apologize, and you're going to remove Amanda's name from every loan, every contract, every piece of paper that ties her to your failing business." "I can't do that," Derek said. "The investors will sue—" "They're going to sue anyway when you can't deliver. But if you do what I'm telling you, I won't add my own lawsuit to the pile. I won't go to the county board and share all these lovely complaint documents. I won't tell every contractor in this town what you've done." Derek's jaw clenched. "You're threatening me." "I'm giving you an out. Take it." I walked to the door. Amanda followed me, her voice breaking. "Dad, wait. Please. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about any of this." I turned back to look at her. My daughter. My little girl who used to build sand castles and catch fireflies and believe that her father could fix anything. Yes, you did, I said quietly. Maybe not all of it, but you knew enough. You knew your mother was hurting. You knew this house meant something to us. And you did it anyway because it was convenient. Because Derek convinced you that money was more important than family. I love him. I know. That's the tragedy. I opened the door. 48 hours, Amanda. After that, I do whatever it takes to protect what's mine. I drove back to the lake house with my hands shaking on the wheel. Not from anger anymore. From something else. Grief, maybe. Or the awful realization that sometimes love isn't enough to save someone from themselves. Linda was awake when I got back, sitting on the porch with coffee. She looked up as I climbed the steps. How did it go? I sat down beside her, taking the coffee she offered. About as bad as you'd expect. Is she sorry? She says she is. Do you believe her? I thought about Amanda's face. The tears. The shock when I'd laid out Derek's lies. I believe she's sorry she got caught. I'm not sure she's sorry for what she did. Linda leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. We sat like that for a while, watching the lake. The water was calm this morning, smooth as glass, reflecting the gray sky. What happens now? Linda asked. Now I make sure Derek Mitchell understands what happens when you threaten my family. Tom, not violence, not revenge, just consequences. I finished the coffee. He's built his entire life on lies and shortcuts and other people's money. I'm just going to make sure everyone knows the truth. And Amanda? That was the question I'd been avoiding. I don't know. Maybe this wakes her up, maybe it doesn't, but either way she needs to see what she's married to. My phone buzzed. Jack Patterson again. Tom, you need to hear this. I just got a call from Bill Morrison. You remember Bill, building inspector? Yeah. Derek Mitchell tried to bribe him this morning. Offered him $5,000 cash to approve a property inspection without doing the actual inspection. I sat up straight. Bill reported it? Damn right he did. And Tom, this is the break you need. Bill's filing an official complaint with the state licensing board. If it goes through, Derek loses his real estate license. I felt something cold and satisfied settle in my chest. How long? Hearings in 2 weeks, but Bill needs documentation. Evidence that this is part of a pattern. That's where you come in. What do you need? Everything you've got. Every complaint, every violation, every angry client. Bill's willing to testify, but he needs backup. Can you get it? I can get it. After Jack hung up, I looked at Linda. Derek just tried to bribe a building inspector. Her eyes widened. He what? He's panicking. Knows he's in trouble, knows he's out of options. So he's making mistakes. I stood up. Which means it's time to push harder. Saturday morning I woke up to the sound of gravel crunching in the driveway. I looked out the bedroom window and saw Derek's Audi, engine running, exhaust visible in the cold November air. I got dressed quickly and went downstairs. Through the front window, I could see Derek sitting in his car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the house. He looked like he hadn't slept. Good. I opened the front door and walked out onto the porch. Derek saw me and got out of the car, slamming the door hard enough to make Linda stir upstairs. We need to talk, he said. His voice was hoarse. Then talk. He looked around as if expecting witnesses. The lake was empty this early, mist still rising off the water. We were alone. I know what you're doing, he said. The documents, the complaints to the licensing board, talking to my investors. You're trying to destroy me. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just making sure the truth gets heard. The truth? He laughed, bitter. You don't care about truth. You care about punishing me for marrying your daughter. If I wanted to punish you for that, I'd have done it a year ago. Derek took a step forward. I love Amanda. Everything I've done for her. To give her the life she deserves. a better life than what you gave her. By stealing from her parents? I wasn't stealing. The house is. He caught himself, breathing hard. You don't understand how business works. You build with capital, you leverage assets, you take risks, but you're content to sit in this falling apart house, working your small jobs, living your small life. And look where that got me. A house I own outright, no debt, a marriage that's lasted 26 years. What do you have, Derek? Loans you can't pay, lawsuits you can't fight, a business held together with lies? His face went red. You think you're better than me because you swing a hammer? Because you do honest work? The sarcasm dripped from his words. Amanda told me all about you, about how you never had ambition, how you were content to fix other people's houses instead of building your own empire, how you settled. I built a life. That's not settling. That's succeeding in the things that matter. Things that matter, Derek repeated, shaking his head. You really believe that, don't you? You really think that working yourself into the ground for 50 years and ending up with nothing but calluses and a used truck is success? I have a family. I have a home. I have peace. What do you have? I have ambition. I have vision. I have... He stopped, and something cracked in his expression. I had Amanda's faith, until you poisoned her against me. I didn't have to poison anything. You did that yourself. Derek's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually swing at me. Part of me wanted him to, wanted the excuse to hit back, to turn this into something physical, something simple. But he didn't. Instead, he said quietly, if you don't stop this, I'll lose everything. My business, my reputation, everything I've built. You already lost it. You lost it the moment you decided to lie to my daughter and use her as a shield for your failures. I never lied to her. Then tell her about the other properties. Derek went very still. What? The investment properties you bought under shell companies, the ones you've been flipping without telling her, the ones where you hid major defects and sold to first-time buyers who couldn't afford the repairs. I pulled out my phone, showing him the documents Jack had found. Tell her about the couple in Asheville who bought one of your houses and found mold so bad their kid got sick. Tell her about the elderly man in Greenville who lost his savings because you lied about foundation issues. Derek's face had gone pale. Where did you get that? It's all public record, court filings, complaint documents. All I had to do was look. I put my phone away. You want to know what really bothers me? It's not that you're a con artist. There are lots of con artists. It's that you convinced my daughter to help you. You turned her into an accomplice. She doesn't know about any of that. She knows enough. She knew we didn't want to sell the house, and she helped you try to do it anyway. She knew her mother was crying, and she didn't care. She knew it was wrong, but she did it because you convinced her that money was more important than family. Derek looked at me with something like hatred. You're going to regret this. Maybe, but not as much as you're going to regret lying to the Boston investors. Not as much as you're going to regret trying to bribe a building inspector. And definitely not as much as you're going to regret what happens when Amanda finally realizes what you are. He turned and walked back to his car. Before getting in, he looked back at me one more time. She'll never choose you over me, he said. She shouldn't have to choose. That's what you don't understand. Real family doesn't make you pick sides. He drove away too fast, gravel spraying. I watched until the dust settled, then went back inside. Linda was in the kitchen making coffee with shaking hands. I heard everything. I'm sorry. I should have... No. She turned to face me, and her eyes were fierce. No more apologies. He came here to threaten you, in our home, on our property. He doesn't get to do that. I'd never seen Linda angry like this. In 26 years, she'd always been the peacemaker, the gentle one, the one who found compromise. But something had broken in her, something that couldn't be fixed with apologies and careful words. What do we do now? She asked. Now we wait. Derek's going to make another mistake. They always do when they're cornered. I was right. That afternoon, my phone started buzzing with calls from unknown numbers. I ignored the first few, then finally answered one. Mr. Harper, this is Jennifer Kim with the Clearwater Springs Observer. I'm calling about allegations against Derek Mitchell. Do you have any comment? How did you hear about this? Someone sent us an anonymous tip with documentation. Court filings, complaint reports, inspection violations. We're running a story tomorrow. I wanted to get your perspective since you're his father-in-law. Derek. He'd tried to get ahead of the story by talking to the press first, but he'd miscalculated. The reporter wasn't calling to print his denials. She was calling to confirm the allegations. I have no comment, I said. The documents show that Mr. Mitchell attempted to sell property owned by you and your wife without authorization. Can you confirm that? Talk to Emily Warren at the town clerk's office. She has the property records. And the allegations of code violations and misrepresentation? Talk to Bill Morrison at Building Inspection. He filed a formal complaint with the state licensing board. Jennifer Kim was quiet for a moment, and I could hear her typing. Mr. Harper, this sounds like a pattern of fraudulent behavior. Why hasn't anyone come forward before now? Because people believe what they want to believe. Derek Mitchell is good at telling people what they want to hear, but eventually, the truth catches up. After I hung up, Linda looked at me with wide eyes. The newspaper? Derek tried to control the narrative. He forgot that small-town reporters actually check facts. This is going to destroy him. Yes, it is. My phone buzzed again. Amanda calling. I answered. Hello? Dad, why is a reporter calling me about Derek? What did you tell them? I told them to verify the facts. That's all. They're asking about lawsuits and complaints and code violations. They're saying Derek committed fraud. You did this. You started this. No, sweetheart. Derek started this when he decided to build a business on lies. I just made sure everyone knew about it. You're destroying his life. His life was already destroyed. I'm just making sure you don't go down with him. She was crying. I'm his wife. I'm supposed to stand by him. Even if it costs you everything, your credit, your reputation, your future. Amanda, the Boston investors are going to sue on Monday. The state board is investigating him. The newspaper is running an expose. This isn't a bump in the road. This is the end. And you can either cut yourself free now or you can drown with him. How can you be so cold? I'm not cold. I'm practical. Someone has to be, since you won't face reality. Reality? You want to talk about reality? My reality is that my father is destroying my marriage. My reality is that you care more about being right than about my happiness. Your happiness was built on other people's pain, on lies and shortcuts and stolen homes. That's not happiness. That's delusion. I hate you. Her voice broke. I hate you for doing this. I know, but maybe someday you'll understand why I had to. She hung up. Linda sat down heavily at the kitchen table. She hates us. For now. What if she never forgives us? Then at least she's alive and free to hate us. Better than being bankrupt and destroyed because we didn't have the courage to tell her the truth. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to the house creak, thinking about Amanda as a little girl, teaching her to fish, building her a treehouse, walking her down the aisle at her wedding while she smiled up at Derek Mitchell like he'd hung the moon. Had I missed the signs? Had I known, even then, that he was wrong for her? Or had I just been an overprotective father who couldn't accept that his daughter was grown? At 2 a.m., I got up and went outside. The lake was perfectly still, reflecting the stars. I sat on the dock, feet dangling over the water, and tried to remember when things had started to go wrong. Not at the wedding, before that. Maybe when Derek first appeared, all polish and smooth words and promises that sounded too good to be true. Maybe when Amanda started posting on Instagram about luxury real estate and investment properties and building wealth. Maybe when she stopped calling Linda, stopped visiting, stopped seeing us as anything more than relics of a past she was leaving behind. Or maybe it started earlier. Maybe it started when I couldn't give her the life she wanted, when she looked around at her friends with their new cars and their college funds and their European vacations, and realized we couldn't afford any of that. When she understood that her father's calloused hands and modest paychecks meant she'd have to work for everything instead of having it handed to her. Maybe Derek hadn't poisoned her against me. Maybe he'd just given her permission to feel what she already felt, that I wasn't enough. Tom? I turned. Linda stood at the end of the dock in her robe, backlit by the porch light. Can't sleep, I said. She walked out and sat beside me, her hand finding mine. Me neither. We sat in silence for a while, watching the stars reflect on the water. Do you think we failed her? Linda asked quietly. I think we did our best. Sometimes that's not enough. She used to love it here, remember? She'd spend all summer on this dock reading books, dangling her feet in the water. She said it was her favorite place in the world. People change. She didn't change. Derek changed her. Maybe, I squeezed her hand. Or maybe he just revealed what was always there. The ambition, the hunger for more, the belief that ordinary wasn't enough. She got that from me, Linda said softly. I always wanted more for her than what we had. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I made her think that what we built wasn't valuable. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself for her choices. But I'm her mother. If she's broken, it's because I didn't. She's not broken, she's just lost, and she has to find her own way back. Linda leaned against me, and I felt her tears soak into my shirt. What if she doesn't come back? Then we love her from a distance, but we don't let her destroy herself trying to save a man who's already gone. Sarah Brennan agreed to take Amanda's case that same afternoon. I drove Amanda to Sarah's office, a small brick building on Main Street that had been a bakery in another life. Sarah was in her 50s, gray hair cut short, glasses on a chain around her neck, wearing a practical pantsuit that said she had better things to do than impress anyone. She listened while Amanda explained everything. The marriage, the business, the loans with Amanda's name on them, the lawsuit. Sarah took notes on a yellow legal pad, her expression neutral, asking pointed questions that made Amanda squirm. Did you sign these loan documents? Sarah asked, pointing to the papers Amanda had brought. Yes, but Derek said they were just formalities. Did you read them? Not really. He said he'd explain everything later, but he didn't. Sarah made a note. Did you receive any money from these loans? Some of it went into our joint checking account. How much? I don't know. Maybe 20,000 total? Sarah looked up over her glasses. Honey, you signed for 150,000 in business loans, and you received 20,000. Where did the rest go? Derek's business, property acquisitions, renovations, operating expenses. Can you prove that? Amanda's face fell. He handled all the finances. Then we have a problem. Sarah sat back in her chair. Legally, you're liable for those loans. Your name, your signature, your responsibility. The fact that you didn't benefit from them doesn't matter. The fact that Derek misled you doesn't matter. What matters is that you signed. So I'm stuck? Not necessarily. We can argue duress, misrepresentation, even fraud on Derek's part. But it's going to be an uphill battle, and it's going to take time. Which brings me to the lawsuit from the Boston investors. That's more immediate. Sarah pulled out the lawsuit documents. They're seeking $200,000 in damages. You don't have that kind of money, correct? Not even close. Then we need to negotiate. Show them you're willing to cooperate. Show them you were a victim of Derek's fraud, not a participant. If we're lucky, we can get them to settle for a fraction of the original amount. How much is a fraction? 10 to 20,000. Maybe less if we can prove you had no knowledge of Derek's misrepresentations. I don't have 20,000 either. Sarah looked at me. But your father does. I'd been sitting quietly in the corner, letting them talk. Now I leaned forward. I'll cover the settlement, whatever it costs. Dad, no. Yes, I said firmly. You made mistakes, but you're still my daughter. I'm not going to let you drown in debt because you trusted the wrong man. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. After everything I did, you're my daughter, I repeated. That doesn't change. Sarah nodded approvingly. All right, here's what we're going to do. Amanda, you're going to file for divorce today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, we're going to make it clear, legally and publicly, that you're separating yourself from Derek's business and his debts. He's going to be furious. Let him be furious. He put you in this position. He doesn't get to be angry that you're protecting yourself. Sarah pulled out more forms. You're also going to sign an affidavit stating that you had no knowledge of Derek's fraudulent practices, that you signed documents without reading them based on his assurances, and that you're willing to cooperate fully with any investigations. Will that be enough? I don't know, but it's the best chance you've got. Sarah looked at her seriously. Amanda, I need you to understand something. The next few months are going to be brutal. Your credit's going to take a hit. Your reputation in the real estate community is going to suffer. Derek's going to fight the divorce, and he's going to try to drag you down with him. You need to be prepared for that. I don't have a choice, do I? Everyone has choices. The question is whether you're brave enough to make the hard ones. We left Sarah's office 2 hours later with a file full of forms and a plan of action. Amanda was quiet during the drive back to the lake house, staring out the window at the gray November landscape. What are you thinking? I asked. That I should have listened to you a year ago, when you said Derek seemed too good to be true? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I could see it in your face at the wedding. You didn't trust him. I didn't know him well enough to trust him. But you knew something was wrong. She turned to look at me. Why didn't you push harder? Why didn't you stop me? Because you were an adult. Because you had to make your own choices. Because sometimes the best lessons come from falling down, not from being caught. This is a hell of a lesson. Yes, it is. When we got back to the lake house, Linda had made dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, comfort food. Amanda ate quietly, and I could see her processing everything. The divorce, the lawsuit, the future that was suddenly full of uncertainty instead of Derek's confident promises. What happens after the divorce? She asked. Where do I go? You stay with us, Linda said immediately. As long as you need. I don't want to be a burden. You're our daughter. You're never a burden. Linda reached across the table, taking Amanda's hand. We'll figure this out together. That night, I lay in bed listening to Amanda cry in the guest room. The walls were thin enough that I could hear her, muffled sobs that went on for an hour before finally fading into sleep. She's breaking, Linda whispered beside me. She needs to break. The person she was with, Derek, that person was built on lies. She needs to break so she can rebuild as someone real. That sounds cruel. It's practical. Derek made her into a version of herself that served his purposes. Ambitious, willing to overlook warning signs, hungry for success at any cost. Now she has to figure out who she is without him. Linda was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Do you think she'll ever forgive herself? Eventually. People are remarkably good at forgiving themselves. It's forgiving others that's harder. Tuesday morning, Amanda filed for divorce. Derek found out within hours. He called her phone 37 times. She didn't answer. Finally, he showed up at the lake house just after noon, pounding on the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I opened it before he could break something. Where is she? He demanded. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes wild. He looked like a man coming apart. She doesn't want to talk to you. I'm her husband. She doesn't get to just... She filed for divorce. You're not her husband anymore. The hell I'm not! He tried to push past me. I blocked him, using my shoulder, my weight, the physical advantage I had from 30 years of construction work. Derek, leave. Not until I talk to Amanda. Not until I make her understand that this is all a mistake, that we can work through this. There's nothing to work through. You lied to her. You used her. You're going bankrupt, and you wanted to drag her down with you. She's done. She's not done. She loves me. Love isn't enough when it's built on lies. Amanda appeared behind me, pale but steady. Derek, I need you to go. Amanda, please, just talk to me. 5 minutes. We've talked enough. You lied to me about the house, about the business, about the loans, about everything. And when I asked you for the truth, you called me weak. I didn't mean that. I was stressed. You meant it. And you were right. I was weak. I believed everything you told me because I wanted it to be true. Because I wanted to be the person you said I could be. But that person doesn't exist. She never did. Derek's face crumpled. I love you. I know, but that doesn't change what you did. Amanda's voice was stronger now. You used me. You put my name on loans I didn't understand. You tried to sell my parents' house without their permission. You built your business on fraud, and you expected me to smile and support you while you destroyed people's lives. I never... Yes, you did. I talked to Mrs. Henderson, the woman who bought your property on Cedar Street. You told her the foundation was solid. You told her the house had been inspected and passed, but it hadn't. And when she found out, when she tried to get you to fix it, you threatened to sue her for libel. Derek looked genuinely shocked. Who told you that? She did, after she read the article in the Observer. She called me to ask if I knew what kind of man I'd married, and I didn't know what to say because I realized I didn't know you at all. Amanda, go, Derek. File whatever papers you need to file. Fight whatever battles you need to fight. But leave me out of it. I'm done being your shield. He stood there for another moment, looking between Amanda and me, his face a mask of rage and desperation and something that might have been genuine pain. Then he turned and walked away. I watched until his car disappeared down the gravel road, then closed the door. Amanda was shaking. Linda wrapped her arms around her, holding her up. That was brave, Linda said. That was terrifying. Amanda pulled back, wiping her eyes. He looked so broken. He is broken, I said. But that's not your fault, and it's not your responsibility to fix him. The rest of the week passed in a blur of legal documents and phone calls. Sarah Brennan negotiated with the Boston investors' lawyers, arguing that Amanda had been a victim of Derek's fraud. She provided evidence, emails where Derek had assured Amanda he'd handle the paperwork, text messages where he'd told her not to worry about the details, bank statements showing she'd never personally profited from the deal. By Friday, they had an offer: settle for $15,000, sign a statement cooperating with any future legal actions against Derek, and agree not to contact the investors directly. Take it, Sarah advised. $15,000 is manageable. $200,000 is not. I wrote the check that afternoon. Amanda watched me sign it, her face pale. I'll pay you back. Every penny. I'll get a job. Don't. I handed the check to Sarah. Consider it an early inheritance. Dad, Amanda, I'm not doing this to make you feel guilty. I'm doing it because you're my daughter, and I can. Let me help you. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. On Saturday, a week after I'd crashed Derek's investor party, Jack Patterson called. The state board hearing is Monday. Bill Morrison's ready to testify. And Tom, we've got 17 people willing to submit statements about Derek's business practices. Clients, contractors, inspectors. This is going to be a massacre. Good. You sure you want to go through with this? I mean, he's still your son-in-law. Not for long. Amanda filed for divorce. Smart girl. Jack paused. Tom, you know this is going to destroy him, right? Not just his business. Him. He'll never work in real estate again. Probably won't be able to get a job doing anything related to property or construction. This is career-ending. I know. And you're okay with that? I thought about Amanda crying in the guest room, about Linda's face when she found out Derek had been planning to sell our house, about the elderly clients Derek had scammed, the contractors he'd stiffed, the families he'd lied to. I'm okay with it, I said. Monday morning, I drove to the state capitol for the licensing board hearing. Linda and Amanda stayed at the lake house, but I needed to be there. Needed to see Derek's face when everything came crashing down. The hearing was held in a gray government building that smelled like old carpet and bureaucracy. The conference room was small, windowless, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The licensing board consisted of 5 people, 3 real estate professionals, 1 lawyer, 1 consumer advocate. Derek arrived late, his lawyer beside him. Not Sarah Brennan's caliber. This guy was young, nervous, clearly in over his head. Derek himself looked like he'd aged 10 years in a week. Unshaven, rumpled suit, eyes sunken. He saw me in the back row and his face hardened. But he didn't say anything. The chair of the board, a woman named Patricia Voss, called the hearing to order. We're here to investigate allegations of misconduct against Derek Mitchell, licensed real estate broker. Mr. Morrison, you filed the complaint. Please present your evidence. Bill Morrison stood up. He was in his 60s, bald, built like a bear. He'd been a building inspector for 30 years and had a reputation for absolute integrity. On November 18th, Bill began, Derek Mitchell approached me at a construction site. He offered me $5,000 cash to approve an inspection without actually conducting the inspection. I declined and reported the incident immediately. Derek's lawyer objected. There's no proof of this alleged bribe attempt. Actually, there is. Bill pulled out his phone. I recorded the conversation. State law allows single-party recording when investigating potential criminal activity. He played the recording. Derek's voice, clear and desperate. Bill, come on. 5,000 cash. Just sign the form. Nobody has to know. And Bill's response. I'm going to pretend you didn't just say that. Walk away, Derek. The room went silent. Derek's face was white. That's one incident, Bill continued. But it's part of a pattern. I've inspected 6 properties sold by Mr. Mitchell in the last year. Every single one had significant code violations that weren't disclosed to buyers, water damage, mold, structural defects, and in every case, Mr. Mitchell assured buyers that the properties had been fully inspected and approved. The board members were taking notes, their faces grim. Do you have documentation? Patricia Voss asked. I do. Bill handed over a file. Inspection reports for all 6 properties, dated after the sales, plus statements from 5 of the 6 buyers, all of whom are considering legal action against Mr. Mitchell. Derek's lawyer tried to object again, but Patricia Voss cut him off. Mr. Mitchell, you'll have your turn. Let Mr. Morrison finish. Jack Patterson went next, presenting documentation of Derek's financial misdeeds. Unpaid contractors, misrepresented property values, the attempted fraudulent sale of my lake house. Each piece of evidence was carefully documented, cross-referenced, verified. Then the victims spoke. Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who'd bought the Cedar Street property, talked about the mold that had made her grandson sick, about the $10,000 in repairs Derek had refused to pay for, about the threats when she'd tried to hold him accountable. James Reynolds, the contractor, talked about the foundation work he'd completed perfectly, only to have Derek refuse payment and threaten to destroy his reputation if he complained. 3 other buyers shared similar stories. Lies about property conditions, hidden defects, promises that evaporated when problems emerged. By the time they finished, Derek looked like a man facing a firing squad. The board chair turned to him. "Mr. Mitchell, do you have anything to say in your defense?" Derek stood slowly. His lawyer tried to speak for him, but Derek waved him off. "I made mistakes," Derek said. His voice was hoarse. "I was trying to build a business in a competitive market. I made judgment calls that maybe weren't perfect, but I never intentionally defrauded anyone. You tried to bribe a building inspector," Patricia Voss interrupted. "We have a recording. I was desperate. The bank was foreclosing. Investors were pulling out. I wasn't thinking clearly." "That's not a defense." "I know." Derek's shoulders slumped. "I know. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to give my wife the life she deserved. I wanted to prove that I could build something real. And I took shortcuts. I made compromises. I told myself everyone does it. That's just how business works. But I was wrong." For the first time since this all started, I felt something almost like pity for him. Because he believed what he was saying. He'd convinced himself that his lies were justified, that his methods were necessary, that the ends justified the means. And now he was watching it all collapse, and he still didn't understand why. The board deliberated for 20 minutes. When they returned, Patricia Voss read their decision. "Derek Mitchell, this board finds that you have violated multiple sections of the State Real Estate Licensing Code. You have misrepresented property conditions to buyers. You have failed to disclose known defects. You have attempted to bribe a public official. You have engaged in fraudulent business practices. Effective immediately, your real estate license is revoked. You are barred from applying for reinstatement for a minimum of 5 years. Additionally, this board is referring your case to the State Attorney General for possible criminal prosecution." Derek closed his eyes. His lawyer started to speak, but Derek shook his head. "It's over," he said quietly. The board adjourned. People filed out slowly, many of them glancing at Derek with expressions ranging from satisfaction to contempt. I stayed in my seat, watching him gather his papers with shaking hands. Finally, he looked up and saw me still sitting there. "You got what you wanted," he said. "I got justice. Justice." He laughed bitterly. "You destroyed my life, my career, my marriage, everything, because I tried to sell a house that your daughter had a right to sell. No, I exposed your lies. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because from where I'm standing it looks like revenge." "Maybe it is," I admitted. "Maybe I pushed harder than I needed to because I didn't like you, because I didn't like what you did to my daughter. But Derek, everything that happened in that hearing room was true. You committed fraud. You bribed an official. You hurt people. And you did it all while smiling and acting like you were building something legitimate. I was trying to succeed. No, you were trying to take shortcuts. Real success, real building, it takes time, it takes integrity, it takes caring more about the quality of your work than the size of your profits. But you didn't want to wait. You wanted everything now, and you didn't care who you hurt to get it." Derek stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Amanda deserves better than you." "Probably. But she definitely deserves better than you." He walked out without another word. I sat alone in the empty conference room, listening to the fluorescent lights buzz, thinking about what I'd done. The board had called it justice. Derek had called it revenge. Sarah Brennan had called it consequences. Maybe it was all three. I drove back to the lake house as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The house looked warm and inviting, smoke rising from the chimney, lights glowing in the windows. Linda and Amanda were inside, safe and together, and finally free from Derek's lies. It wasn't perfect. Amanda had a long road ahead of her, rebuilding her life and her credit and her reputation. Linda still cried sometimes, mourning the daughter she thought she'd raised and trying to accept the one she actually had. And I carried the weight of knowing I'd destroyed a man, even if that man had been destroying himself all along. But as I climbed the porch steps and heard Linda's laugh from inside, I knew I'd made the right choice. Sometimes love means protecting people from themselves, even when they hate you for it, especially then.